back to ODE Drops, your occasional podcast-style dispatch from the Department of Online and Digital Education. I am your host, Moses Wolfenstein. I am our distance education faculty coordinator. And joining me today, we have two special guests from Pronto Communications, Sydney Dutson and Lauren Luker. If you would introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Sydney Dutson. I am a customer success manager at Pronto, specifically for El Camino. So you and I have worked together for a few years now.
Quite
so
a
it's
bit.
super fun to be in person with you.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is Lauren.
Yeah, I'm Lauren. I'm also a customer success manager here at Pronto, but I work with other schools. So I'm just happy to be here today and see the El Camino campus is beautiful.
And you've both been working with our system, with the California Community College system, I take it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I understand that after your visit here in exciting Torrance, that you're heading down to San Diego today.
We are.
We've been all over. Went up to Victorville yesterday, and then we're going down to San Diego. So we've been all over the place, been able to see everything.
Fantastic. Well, some of our listeners and our viewers may be familiar with Pronto, but give us like the 10,000-foot overview. What is Pronto, just so people know a little context for our discussion today?
Pronto is a communication platform fully integrated in Canvas. So it creates groups based on published courses, sections within those courses, allows students to connect with each other immediately because it's going to pull in from Canvas those enrollments and then enroll those same students into a group with their instructor, allows them to create DMs, create groups on their own, but more importantly, it pulls them in from their Canvas so they can connect automatically without sharing emails and phone numbers.
Yeah, and really the overarching goal of Pronto is to create a community space for students to feel like they have a place that they belong. We're online so much now. That type of instant communication is so important, and it's meeting students where they already are and giving them an opportunity to have a voice and build connections that are so important to being successful in their education journey.
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. And I would venture to say that it doesn't matter if they're in an online course or if they're taking on-campus courses. With that in mind, be human. That is Pronto's motto, and I mean, we're not here to...
We're sporting the motto today.
Yeah, you sure are. For anyone who's listening, podcasting famously not a visual medium, although now with YouTube posting, for many of you it might be. But since we're already a Pronto customer, we're not here to do a promotion per se, and I'm going to ask a bunch of other questions that are a little bit broader. But I still want to get both of your perspective on what does be human mean for Pronto? What does it mean for each of you personally?
Yeah, we live in a world where we're surrounded by technology, which makes things easier, more convenient, more flexible. But with students working from home and taking online classes, there's that missing piece. I feel like it disconnects people as well. And so with Pronto, we're hoping to kind of give that human touch where even sending an email, that's different. That's, talking and connecting is different. And even with emails, you're crafting an email, you're having to put a subject line, make it professional, more formal. Sure. And with Pronto, it's more organic. And it allows you to get to know the instructor, students get to know each other in a non-pressure way. And even, I've talked to instructors who they really try to show their personality in Pronto simply with gifts. Sure. And one instructor in particular that I'm thinking of, he would have he loves shoes. Okay. And he would have students in the beginning of class share their favorite type of shoe, and whether that's a picture or a GIF. And I think that shows just kind of lets students see instructors as people. Yeah. And it helps connect them and it helps them understand some of their interests, and they get to know each other. And I think by sharing, those gifts, it's like, oh, that person likes that TV show too. And then you're instantly connected to each other. And it's just a very easy way that students are familiar with.
Totally. A little less formal.
Yes, less formal. And they're used to connecting like that with, in social platforms, whether that's texting or Discord, Sure. Pronto fits right in there, but they know specifically for their classes.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for me, and I'd also like to share a little story that comes to mind when I think of the be human, and add on to what I said earlier about meeting students where they're at. I had an instructor who had a student who wasn't showing up as much in their chats in Pronto, and in Pronto you have read receipts. You can see who is or is not seeing the messages. So
Absolutely.
this student wasn't showing up as much, and they ended up reaching out to the instructor in a DM pretty late in the evening and actually shared they were having some very serious thoughts about their own life.
Oh, wow.
And, this is an extreme case, but something that the instructor shared with me was, I am so grateful that I have Pronto. This is not something I would receive in an email.
Yeah.
Might not even be something I'd receive face to face, but having this direct message open to me allowed my student, who didn't have anyone else in their life that they felt they could talk to, but they had a teacher who they felt like cared because of the way that they showed up and opened themselves up to have instant messages. It just goes such a long way that, that's going outside of education. As I mentioned, this is more of an extreme case.
Sure.
But something that really is meaningful to not just the student's education experience, but to their life and feeling that support and community.
Absolutely.
So I think bringing in that human touch is something that Pronto does a really good job of.
And I mean, to be real about it, it's not something that not all technology or even all educational technology does. There are plenty of examples, I'm not going to name names, that are perhaps less than humanistic in terms of how they engage, not just with students, but with faculty and other users as well. So yeah, I would say that as an end user myself, when I first came across Pronto in 2019, that I think it was at InstructureCon actually, here in the LA area in Long Beach. That was one of the things that I identified immediately was like, this is a very humanistic technology. This is, it's not like a surveillance technology. It's not built the same way, and I've really felt that reinforced at every step working with your team. So we've had some faculty make great use of Pronto here at El Camino. You've both given me a couple of examples, but if you want to share a couple more examples, like you've just done in general terms, about other faculty who have made particularly interesting or powerful uses of Pronto with their students.
Yeah, you talked about that instructor that had a DM with a student already initiated, and so it made it easy, an easy place to connect with their instructor. So I know that some instructors, they will have students initiate a DM at the beginning of a semester with them, so they have an open line throughout the semester, and it's already there for them in their Pronto drawer or list.
Sure.
An easy way to connect. Some instructors will do office hours in Pronto, where they'll open it up at a certain time and certain days where they're like, okay, it's office hour time. Any questions? Whether they're posing, yes,
Yeah.
And you can see the little green dot that shows they're active.
Totally.
And they
I've
either
made use of Pronto this way myself.
yeah. Yep. And so they'll pose it to the entire group where it's like, okay, free for all, ask questions, or it might be that the students know that time frame and they're aware that the instructor is on Pronto and they're jumping into the DM and they can quickly get their questions answered, and even go live with our meeting feature really quickly.
Yeah, and another great thing is, not just that teacher-student connection, but the students connecting with each other. I know that I had one instructor actually share with me yesterday that he mentioned he just sets up smaller groups for the students to connect that he's not even a part of, that he just says, hey, you guys use this to connect with each other. And he noticed at the end of the semester in their larger group, they were all saying how grateful they were to have gotten to know each other in this way. And he teaches solely online. And so these students normally don't get to know the other people in their class, but they're like, we've made such good friends this semester. I'm so grateful that we had Pronto so that we could connect here. And then on the other side, I actually have an instructor who teaches face-to-face that also uses Pronto. And it's, become a group chat where they'll be like, oh, hey, this student said that they are caught in traffic. They're going to be a little bit late today. And they sent that message in the Pronto group so everyone's able to see it. It's just a great way to have, I keep saying the word community. I feel like it's something that we talk about a lot here at Pronto.
Absolutely.
But just that community space that we're used to having online. I think about my group texts that I have, having something that's dedicated to your class, that you're not having to ask for people's numbers, that you're just already included day one because it's created for you right there.
Yeah. And that's a key feature I think that students really need to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's that I've talked to Lauren once in class, but we don't know each other that well. But I can go find her name in my Pronto list and send her a direct message without having to feel like I'm asking for a number. It's a little bit less, personal.
Less
having to.
Yeah, it's less intimidating,
yeah.
more comfortable, and just easier to do.
Yeah, and with those student groups, whether they're being created in Canvas, in that People tab with those groups, or being created manually in Pronto, for those students, I know that some instructors, they can either choose to be part of those student groups or not, but they'll have students go live in those groups, whether it's a presentation or some type of dialogue or whatever it is that they're working on, a group project, and they can record the meeting, and then they'll submit that as an assignment in Canvas, or the instructor can view those, and whether they're deciding to grade that or not. But that's another use case that I've seen with meetings. So yeah, those are a few.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because in the context, as you and I have chatted about in some of our monthly check-ins of AI, one of the things I'm really trying to encourage my faculty to consider, faculty listeners, this is for you, is very specifically that students don't have access to Zoom the way that faculty do, so that full featured set, it's not necessarily available to them. But we don't have to tell students, you have to roll your own if you want to do a video recording. That this is part of our suite, and if you want to have students submit a video recording, again, faculty, this is for you. It's really easily done, and it's really, personally, I think it's pretty intuitive to just jump into a meeting to hit that record and then be like, oh, now I can just save this.
Yes.
Now I can upload it. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of the fact that fluidity exists in Pronto.
Yeah, and it's nice because students can be on their mobile app. Maybe they're heading to work or at work and they quickly hop on a call. It's super simple to just be inside of the chat group and join that call. Something else I thought about with instructors is, there's one instructor in particular I'm thinking of that she would jump into DMs with her students to remind them of assignments that are coming up, that are due that day or the next day, that maybe they just need a little bit push, and she'll jump into a DM, just a friendly reminder, and she saw that her assignment submissions went way up just through that.
Right on.
And
That's
then
powerful.
Speaking of in-person or hybrid classes, we've had instructors talk about using Pronto for exit tickets when they're leaving class. So, at the end of class, maybe the instructor has them jump in and share something they learned, something they still have a question about, or, for students that were absent today, what could you tell them that we learned about? And students that weren't in class that day, they still have access to Pronto. They're still getting those messages, so they can see a flood of those messages come in. And I think, as well as a warm-up activity at the beginning of class can be useful, where it's, you pose a question in the group, and when everyone gets into class, they just answer in that same group. So there are ways to use it. Like you said, it's not just an online tool, but there are many different ways to use it depending on your modality. So
I want to pivot, actually, to a focus a little bit more for any student listeners. For our students who haven't used Pronto yet, how might you describe it to them? And then the second part of this question is, if their faculty aren't using it, what can they do?
I think for students, you think about it in the way of, I think people are really familiar with Discord or GroupMe, these kind of free options. It's very similar, a way for you to connect, but you're not having to do anything to get connected to your class. It's there for you.
Sure.
And not only that, it's a lot safer way of connecting with people who you might not know.
Yeah.
I always mention that instructors can ask for transcripts at any time. And the reason I bring this up with talking about it with students is, these are people you don't know. And if you get a message that might be uncomfortable to you, we're able to help you out. Pronto is able to provide those for your instructor, if something were to happen, that it's a much safer way than maybe these other options.
Are you suggesting that on a random Discord a student has set up where that student is the administrator, maybe they might not be, have any obligation or legal requirement? Yeah.
Yeah, why not use a school-sponsored tool instead? And it's so simple and easy to hop on and use. And not only are you going to be connected to everyone already through your class, but you can create your own study groups, invite people from your class that you become friends with to be in those groups. And you talked about students not having access to Zoom like instructors do earlier. With these group messages, they can hop on to a Pronto meeting for however long they need. I know if you have a free Zoom account, it's limited to a certain time period. But this is something that you can record for, I think the recording can go up to 2 hours. and you can meet all together, and it doesn't matter what device you're joining on. Everyone gets to have the same experience, and again, you can have it for as long as you really need to without having to make a Zoom account and be restricted on that. So it's just a great way for students to easily connect with each other.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but literally, unlike WhatsApp or Discord, where they would have to share their personal account, or potentially they're creating an extra account, jumping through hoops to try and create that protection for themselves with somebody who they don't necessarily know they're going to be friends after this course is done, right?
Yeah. And what's nice is at El Camino, you don't have to wait for the instructor to set up the Pronto group. It's going to happen automatically, so you can jump right in and start, asking questions and connecting with the peers in your class. And for those, for the instructors, it is more helpful if the instructors are, letting students know about Pronto and kind of opening that up for them as a tool for them to use. But it is, doable, even if the instructor is not.
Yeah, and since it's just available at El Camino, a student could ask their instructor if they wanted to use it.
Sure.
And they could use it, like Sid is saying, even without the instructor. But if you want to say, like, hey, I use this in another class, can we use it here?
Yeah.
Can I tell other students about it? That's a great way to just bring it up. Since it's already available, you might as well.
So student listeners, you can advocate for the use of Pronto in your courses, or in the vast majority of cases, even if your faculty aren't really using it themselves, you can still use it. It is possible for a faculty to turn off a Pronto chat for their course. But that equally wouldn't prohibit students from finding each other to connect one-on-one or in small groups if they wanted to form, say, a study group.
Yeah.
So much like you would in person in a class, maybe in the hall outside the class, or as you're walking out of the building, you can connect with each other.
Exactly.
So one thing that I think some people might see as a barrier, app fatigue is a phrase I've been hearing thrown around in a number of contexts lately. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on it, and what are the trade-offs, if you will?
Yeah, app fatigue is a real thing, and I speak from firsthand experience. When I was a K-12 teacher, I felt like I kept getting these, like, this is a great tool, and that's a great tool, and you can use it here and there, and it became so much, and there are so many great tools out there that can enhance your teaching.
And then you find some of them are giant, and suddenly your phone doesn't work anymore.
Yes, right? And it does get overwhelming because you're like, I'm just trying to do my job and trying to teach these students, and of course you want to include these tools, but it becomes a lot.
Yeah.
And so I do want to validate that it is a real thing. With Pronto, the great thing about Pronto is it is already set up. There's not a lot that you have to do before you can begin using it. And also you don't have to train your students most of the time because students are used to this. It's like Lauren has mentioned a couple times, it's meeting students where they're at.
Absolutely.
And so it really is just letting students know about Pronto, just having them download the app, get in there, and then usually students will take it from there.
Yeah.
And if you are using Pronto, something we hear over and over again from instructors that have used Pronto a lot and are successful with it is they've mentioned that it actually helps save them time in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
Students will start asking each other questions. I know that Lauren has talked about an instructor that says, like, ask 3, then me. And so it allows students to first go to each other and build that community and connect with each other before you get roped in as the instructor to help, because you have a lot on your plate. And so if you can start using Pronto, you'll start to see the benefits of it actually giving you time back in your day. Right. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Lauren.
I think, communication is something that has to happen regardless. Yeah. And I would just say to anyone, give Pronto a try, see if it makes your life easier. And I hear time and time again that it does, because like Sid said, it's allowing students to help each other. Yeah. Allowing them to get answers, talk about things, discuss topics, even maybe complain about how hard class is, whatever
the things
it
that
might.
you do in a study group, right?
Yeah, but giving them that space, and then you're just able to be there, put information out, and again, you get read receipts seeing who gets the information. Whereas when you're sending out these individual emails, you're just kind of crossing your fingers hoping that it gets out.
Right.
Where with Pronto, you're getting that validation. So there's a lot of things that's going to make your life just easier with the communication you're already doing. It's just giving you the validation that, yes, it's getting across. oh, I can see the students are talking to each other rather than a one-off email that I'm responding to that, oh, how can I broadcast this question to the whole class? What's a good place for me to know people are seeing it? That's what Pronto is going to come in and be used for. So it's really just making your communication that's already happening a lot easier.
Yeah, along those same lines, an instructor mentioned that when she gets, I guess, she taught a summer course, and at the beginning of every week, students jumped in and they were sharing what are they most nervous about in this upcoming week, or just being candid with each other and connecting. And then she said that when they had to do group projects later on, it was so much easier because these students already knew each other, to a certain extent, and they were familiar, and it was more natural for them to work together. And so I think it even if they are, talking about things that are outside of, academics, it's going to help them when they are doing these group projects or working together later on.
Yeah, just be more successful. So just try it out. It's really a simple tool.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find it makes your life easier.
That's kind of my take, is that Discord has a couple of extra features. It is also not end-to-end encrypted, and we cannot use it here. Yeah. Pronto is just a little bit slimmed down. It doesn't have to worry about supporting gamers in a gaming environment, but it has a lot of what students and any user would otherwise expect. And it is actually that kind of, the simplicity of it and the familiarity of it, to me, that's like one of the best reasons that students or faculty should give it a try. I think the other thing I personally want to emphasize for faculty is you don't have to download the mobile app if that's not your jam, and you're spending your time and your workspace in a desktop environment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because you can download the desktop app, which will sit right there on your desktop, and you'll get badge notifications, which makes it super easy, or you can be inside of Canvas and access it there. We do recommend having students download the app, just the mobile app, just because, as we all know, that's where they're at most of their day. But of course, for instructors, they have that option and they can do what they prefer.
I would say, yeah, for most student users, if anything, we sometimes have a challenge encouraging y'all to do certain types of assignments or activities that are not really a good fit for mobile, but Pronto's a very good fit for mobile. So
yeah.
I've got it on my phone and on my laptop. So, desktop in the office here as well. So I realize I've been a terrible podcast host because I meant to ask you a warm-up question and totally dropped the ball on that. Outside of Pronto, what's one of your favorite apps?
Sadly, I'm on Instagram a lot.
Hey, it happens.
And again, it's connecting to people, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing what your friends are up to. You can post, like we've been in California, we posted a couple of pictures at the beach yesterday. So I do happen to be on Instagram a lot. Of course, text messaging is always common. I don't know about Lauren.
Yeah, I think I like Be Real, if you've heard of that.
I have heard of it and I haven't checked it out.
Yeah, sends a notification to everyone on Be Real at the same time, and you take a picture within 2 minutes of what you're doing at that time, which is, I just like feeling like you can be candid with people with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So I really enjoy that. And then I also use Mealime. Highly recommend it. It helps you plan out your meals for the week, and it builds a grocery shopping list for you based on the meals you've chosen.
Like this is what I want to do, and then it's going to help you
so totally
pre-prep.
different avenue, but I use it all the time.
Yeah,
What about
that's
you,
kind of the
Moses?
point of this question. Ooh, wow. Ooh, I didn't expect my question to flip back
coming
on
right
me.
back
This
at
is
ya.
terrifying. I want to get out my phone and figure out what am I using.
What apps do I go to?
Yeah, I do use Discord with my tabletop RPG groups, so it's just a natural fit for that. And ironically, I would say, the ironically was that I also use WhatsApp for connecting with friends. But honestly, in a certain way, sadly, my favorite app, certainly by screen time, is probably Reddit.
Yep. Yep.
And it's interesting. In a certain way, though, it has resonance with Pronto.
Yeah.
Because with Reddit, you're opting into communities, right? As opposed to your content being fed to you based off of what people happen to be doing. I'm a big fan of the band The Decemberists, so I'm in the Decemberist subreddit, and I'm seeing people posting about the recent album, and oh my gosh, this one part of Joan in the Garden totally sounds like this Pink Floyd song, right? And so it's a lot more, in a sense, like Pronto in a course, right? Where, hey, we're here because we're focused on a topic, which is something that I happen to really like about Reddit as a social media experience.
Yeah.
We're gonna close it out, but I have one more question for you. Obviously, the team at Pronto has a roadmap, so there's a future in mind there, but I'm not actually going to ask you about that. I want your perspectives instead about what you think the future, whether near term or a little further out, holds in terms of educational technology and how these tools are going to help us to be human.
Yeah. I think, like you said, with the roadmap, but not discussing specifics.
Sure.
We've spent several years building a communication app that's seamlessly integrated into Canvas, where we have most of the major features, that make a communication tool. And so we find ourselves in this awesome position to be able to now say to instructors, what do you need? How can we make this more effective for you and the way that you're teaching, and help you be able to be successful in communicating with your students? And so I think this year we are focused on being able to connect with as most educators as possible, so that we can get that feedback and take it back to our team and let them know what it is that where do we need to go from here to make the most impact. And I think in terms of communication, like that question that you mentioned, I think that being able to accept change, that where we are right now in 2024 is a lot different than we were even 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Especially, yeah.
Yes, and so I think being able to recognize that students maybe are not going to be communicating like they used to, even if that's the way that an instructor is used to communicating. And like we keep mentioning, meet students where they're at, and that is being able to continue moving with the times and being able to stay up to date with how students are talking to people throughout their life.
Yeah, and I think that with these education technologies, having it be where, I know you mentioned at the beginning, it exists in person and online, and it's all going to become one place, I think, where it just feels like they exist together. And with these technologies, I know with Pronto, we want it to be a space where truly everyone can be. We have a language translation that can translate into over 100 different languages to make it where it doesn't matter what your native language is, you're going to understand the jokes that people are telling in the chat. Just be a part of the conversation. Feel like you're truly understood. We just added live captioning to meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Making it so it's extremely accessible. And I think that that's where it's going to go, is just continue to improve all of these different technologies to make it a space where truly everyone can belong. Does not matter what your background is, what your personal limitations might be, but that everyone gets to have the same education experience. And I think that's something that Pronto's always focused on, and that in education, I think it's a really important thing for all of the other technologies as well.
Yeah, it's that equity piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Your equity, your accessibility, both are ethical and in some instances legal obligations. I really do love the captioning example, only because I think increasingly everybody has started to realize that captions aren't just for people who have a hearing disability.
I watch movies with subtitles all the time.
All the time. You're watching something like True Detective, and you're like, oh my God, who makes the sound on this? I can't understand what Matthew McConaughey is saying if I don't turn on the captions. But even in thinking about that idea that I'm in a loud environment, but I can still participate by throwing those captions on. And towards that whole vision of access. I love it. Well, Lauren and Sydney, I'm so glad that you were able to make it to our campus here at El Camino today.
We're happy to be here, and I want faculty and students to know that I'm here to help. At any time, I'm happy to do one-on-one sessions, happy to jump in and help out wherever I can, so to help support your use of Pronto.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for this episode of ODE Drops. We will see you next time, whenever that might be.